Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
Okay, so I have a couple stories, but there's one main one that I will never forget. It will always freak me out. And it happened in my house when I was in high school. So I'll share the first story that led up to this main event, and then I'll talk about what really happened. So basically, I was in the 6th grade and I was having a sleepover with my friend, and I had no idea what a Ouija board was. No one's ever told me. This was early 2000s at this point. And, I just wasn't educated on it. And so, of course, me being a 6th grader, thinking it was a board game, I'm like, yay, board game. Like, let's try something new. And so we were playing it. Nothing was really going on. Like, we were asking some silly questions like, oh, who am I going to marry when I'm older? And it wasn't really saying a whole lot. But looking back on it, something that kind of freaks me out is when we asked who we were talking to, it went to a Z. And I'm not going to talk any further on that. If you know, you know. And so we went upstairs to go get some, water, some snacks, stuff like that. My parents asked me, what are you guys doing downstairs? And we say, we're playing the Ouija board. And my parents are like, nope, absolutely not. You are not playing that. Please stop doing that. And so we went downstairs, we closed it up, and what followed after that freaked me out. So we heard some voices that night, nothing crazy, honestly. It wasn't like the super dramatic thing. But for years, I started hearing voices. I started seeing some things like people calling out my name in the middle of the night. I saw something in my closet, just like random things here and there. I vividly remember when I was younger, this was middle school now. I don't remember the exact time, but my siblings were, young, and we were home alone. My parents were traveling that day. And so they were coming back home. We were alone. Our babysitter had left, and we all, for some reason, looked down to the right. And so that's where our hallway was. And we had a really long extended hallway. And then our parents' doorway was facing where that hallway was. And so we all look over at the same time. It was the weirdest thing. And we see this man, like this really, really tall man standing there. And all of us say nothing. And we see this man turn and walk down the hallway. And so I look at them and I'm like, did you see that? And they're like, yeah. And I don't know what made us do this, but we went throughout the house and started trying to find if there was a man in the house. And if you've seen any horror movies, it's definitely not what you're supposed to do. Like, don't do that. But for some reason, that was, the mindset at the time. And we searched everywhere. Nothing was there, So there was no man. And we start moving on knowing that, we had just seen some random dude in our house and he disappeared. And so for years after that, nothing crazy really happened. Again, sometimes I'd hear somebody walking in the house when I was home alone or like in the middle of the night, but I just ignored it, tried not to give it any mind. But this is where the main event happens. So my brother passed away when I was in high school, and he lived in Tennessee with, my other family. My parents are, not together. So that side of the family, told me the news, and I went out and, flew out for the funeral. And so the day after the funeral, when I was flying home, my stepmom had lost her keys. And I went into her bathroom. She sets things in weird places. So she told me to look in her bathroom, look in her closet just to see if she dropped it, try to find, where the keys are so we can leave and go to breakfast together before I have to get on the plane. And I don't know what it was, but I felt such a difference in the air. Like the atmosphere went cold. I can't describe it. But if you've experienced something like this, it's a very eerie feeling. I felt like I was isolated, even though there were 3 other people in the house, but I was alone in that room. And all of a sudden I felt like metaphorically cornered in the closet. and I heard my name being called with my brother's voice. And it's like time stopped. I knew it wasn't him because I thought that if it really was him, I wouldn't be freaked out. I wouldn't be feeling such a dark, gross feeling. Mind you, I'm already emotional because, I loved my brother and he had just passed away. And so hearing his voice was like weird and it was emotional for me. And I ran out of that room because I felt like whatever was talking to me was not him and it wasn't safe. So I ran out, and my stepmom had been calling for me for 10 minutes and I didn't hear her. So literally, it's like time had stopped. So I told them about this at breakfast and they're like, oh, I wish he would talk to me. And I'm like, but it wasn't him. Like, this is the weird thing. It wasn't him. Right. And so I go home, months go by, nothing happens. I'm grieving my brother. I'm sad. And I talk to him sometimes, at that point. I still do, but, at this, during this story, I was talking to him sometimes, and whatever it was that talked to me at my stepmom's house followed me to my house in Minnesota. So I was in Tennessee. That's where the first event happened. I'm back in Minnesota at my mom's house where, the Ouija board thing had happened. We're keeping that in mind. So I go to bed one night. I'm the only one that lives upstairs, right? And so that's where the front door is. My bedroom at the time was right next to the front door. And so we had a staircase going downstairs, and that's where my parents and my siblings were. My mom would stay upstairs in the kitchen, dining room area until, sometimes later in the night, just getting projects done. She's a very crafty person. So I went to bed knowing that she was, kind of within the vicinity. I felt safe. And what I did was I always closed the doors and closed the blinds before I went to bed because, I had experienced some things. I was a little freaked out. And I had already some nights experienced sleep paralysis. And, I was already kind of on edge about that. So close all the blinds, close the doors. And I had my radio on and I start, kind of dozing off, and my radio sounds slower and distorted all of a sudden. And I'm like, something's about to happen. And it did. So I felt like I heard the doors opening, but I was like, no, I'm going crazy. There's nobody else that would be, but it was both doors, my closet door and my door to my bathroom that I heard opening. And I'm like, there's not two people in my room. There's no way. And I didn't even hear my room door open, the main door. And so I can't get up. It's like I am, I'm in sleep paralysis. I can't do anything. I can't talk. I can't open my eyes. I can't move. And all of a sudden I feel myself getting up and I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't me. And so I feel myself get out of bed, but I don't feel like I'm in control of my own body. And I feel myself reach my hand out for my door. And I feel the doorknob. I start, opening my door. And all of a sudden I hear my brother's voice come from my bathroom and him saying, Maddie, I need to talk to you. And I don't know how, but somehow, some way I was able to talk in that moment. And I'm like, no, get out. I know this isn't you. I don't want to hear it. And I don't know what it was, but it was okay, I'll leave. Okay, you'll leave. Okay. But here I am, kind of traumatized because, it's my brother's voice again. And I'm still grieving. This is only a couple months after he passed. And so I'm like, well, what if it was my brother? And I carried on that guilt for so long thinking well, what if it was him? But it was that creepy feeling again. And I'm like, you know what? If this was really my brother, there is no way that he would do this to me, that he would freak me out, that he would try to do all this stuff. There's just no way. I feel like he would come and try to peacefully talk to me and have a conversation. But, that's a whole other conversation. And so I opened my eyes, after I muster enough courage, I open my eyes and all my doors are open, all of them. And nobody was upstairs. My mom is already fast asleep at this point. It was midnight. And I know this story sounds crazy, but this really happened and it still freaks me out to this day. And I don't know
I used to do house calls for a company that no longer exists anymore. And I used to do house calls in homes in the hills of the Appalachian Mountains. And I mean, no cell service, no GPS, people living off the grid, sometimes don't have electricity, sometimes don't have running water. Like, I am off the beaten path, dirt road, navigating by map, right? And some of the things that I have seen in these homes can't even be explained. I can't even be explained. For example, there was one time I was driving to this house. I actually had to drive through a graveyard, up this dirt road, to make it to this home on the top of a hill. And I knock on the door, and this old lady comes and gets me, and we walk into the house, and immediately, I can tell it's like a hoarding situation, right? Like, there is stuff stacked from the floor up to the ceiling. Like, you can't even see when you're turning around a corner what's going to be there because the opening is so narrow. And immediately I'm like, okay, fire hazard, this is concerning, we're going to have to consult social work. Like, this is a mess. I don't know how she's living here. We finally make our way down the hallway, and at the end of the hallway there's a sitting area, and there's actually no clutter in the sitting area. There's like a table, there's a love seat, there's a recliner, and then there's like 5 dolls, like my size Barbie height-ish, standing in a half circle around a TV, and the TV is on. And then there are 3 small rocking chairs, children-sized rocking chairs, with 3 figures sitting in them. Appear to be like dolls, right? And she takes a seat in the love seat. She tells me to go ahead and take a seat on the recliner. And I start my assessment. Like, I'm asking her, when was the last time you saw a provider? Like, do you go into town to see a doctor? Is this the only time you see anyone during the year? Like, are you on any medications? And she stops me and she's like, hang on. Can you turn the kids around? And I'm like, turn the kids around? Like, what are you talking about? She's like, can you turn them around? And she points to, like, the dolls. And I was like, no. The vibe was already creepy. I already was, like, very weirded out by it. And I just say, no, I'm not allowed to touch, any personal property in the home while I'm doing the visit. And just continue to proceed asking my questions, like, to kind of play it off and, like, hope she just forgets. And she stops me and she goes, you need to turn them around because they like to watch. And I'm like, up until this point, I didn't, like, there was no reason for me to believe this person was not cognitively intact. Like, they didn't seem like, woohoo. So I'm like, again, I politely decline. I go on to do my job. I'm looking at her. I'm asking questions. I turn my head. Tell me why one of the doll-like things, has now moved. And it's now halfway turned towards me. And I know that it has moved because it was the first thing that I noticed when I walked into the room, how peculiar it was that they were all standing in like a half circle formation looking at the television. They were like dolls. So I know it was out of place when I look back at it. And I had asked her, is anybody else home? Who do you live with? She tells me that she lives with her nephew. Nephew is not home. He is at work. And immediately chills. Like, I could feel it at the base of my spine, like moving up. Like, hair on the back of my neck standing up. It did not feel right. And so I pivot because I'm doing her blood pressure now and, like, asking her about some of her medications. So I'm at a different angle, and I see that these things sitting in the rocking chairs are doll-esque, like doll type-ish, but they look like little old people. They have like old people faces, and they're dressed in baby clothes. And again, she says, turn them around. I said, no, thank you. And she said, they are getting angry. Stop. They are getting angry? What do you mean they are getting angry? By this point, I'm just trying to remain professional. I am trying to remain unshaken. I'm here to do a job. I'm going to provide that job. I'm going to do an excellent job at my job. But on the inside, I'm freaking out. And she says, okay, why don't you have a look around the rest of the house? She's like, I'll show you my other sitting area and whatever, because I always, if someone has like a hoarding situation or whatever, I want to make sure that, we get social work in. I'm concerned about fire hazard and etc. And so she's leading me around the house, and we get to a staircase, and she goes, you can't go up there. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, no, you can't go up there because that's where my nephew lives, and he keeps his things up there. And I'm like, all right. And I start to notice a very, very distinct odor. I'm assuming from somewhere in that general vicinity of the house, like the upstairs area. And I had asked her about it. I'm like, there's an odor. What is up there? She's like, oh, I don't go up there. That's my nephew's part of the house. It was at that point where I was like, no. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's bodies. I don't know what's up with these dolls. So obviously I consulted social work. I completed my job. I completed my visit. I did not take my eye off that doll again. And then I went to leave the house. I opened the screen door. I'm saying my goodbyes. I'm thanking her for having me and telling her what I recommend that she do. And she grabs my wrist as I'm walking out the door. Doesn't say anything, just grabs my wrist. And I said, "Did you need something else?" And she's just standing there, holding onto my wrist. And I said, "Okay, all right, goodbye." And I like pull myself away from her. And she's just staring at me. I left. Luckily, I was just about done working in that area. Never had to go back to that house again. Don't think I would. The way the hair on the back of my neck stood up, unreal. I sent social work into the house. They can sort that out. I will never forget that. I will never forget that house. I will never forget that doll. That doll, I still dream about it sometimes. The way the doll had like turned around to like try to look at me. No, man. No. I've seen some shit doing house calls out in the mountains. I've heard some shit. I've heard some whistling. I've not done some whistling, but I've heard some whistling. And I'll tell you what, if you see it, no, you didn't. If you heard it, no, you didn't. But that day I saw some shit that I didn't want to see.
Story time about some of the crazy things I had happen to me while I used to babysit for a family with a lot of demonic activity in their house. This was the first time anyone validated me and saw something with me, so I knew I wasn't crazy. It's just a quick little story, but it's one that really stuck with me. So this particular night, usual amount of insane activity is going on in the house, and I say insane, but it had become so normal, just hearing laughing and seeing shadows out of the corner of her eyes, and, Luna, the oldest one, talking to the ghosts as she normally does, or demons. Usual night babysitting of terror. Nothing extraordinarily crazy had happened this night, besides the laughing and the shadows, like I said, which that was every single time I walked in the house. So I remember I put both the kids to bed, and I was going to go to like a party afterwards because I was in high school. So I remember parents were out for date night or something, and I was on the phone with one of my friends, FaceTiming somebody. And we were talking, and she's like, "Oh, like, hold on," and she gets all quiet. And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "We'll go check on the kids." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "You said you put the kids to bed." I was like, "Yeah, they're in bed, they're sleeping." And she was like, "No, there's literally, I just saw like two things walk behind you. I just saw something walk behind you like twice." And I remember just instantly like my blood running so cold, the pure like terror I experienced in that like moment. I was like, "No, dude, like the kids are, I'm telling you, they're sleeping." And she was like, "No, Riley, like something walks behind you." I don't know if it was two people or just one of the kids, but I saw a shadow, like someone, of a person, an apparition, walk behind the frame of like FaceTime twice behind you. So I'm sitting on the couch, and behind the couch is like, a little living room and TV. Behind the couch is the kitchen. It's like a big open room. So I'm thinking like, okay, one of them, honestly, at first when she said that, I didn't think it was to do with the activity. I was just in denial. But I was thinking that like Luna, the oldest child, had maybe gone up to get a snack or water or something, and she'd been having issues like staying asleep. So I wondered like, okay, she maybe didn't want me to know she was awake and was just trying to get something. And so I remember I looked really slowly behind me. I was absolutely terrified. Nothing. The kids are in the kitchen. So I'm still on FaceTime with my friend, and she's freaking out. She's literally like teary-eyed. She's like, "That was the craziest thing I've ever seen." "What do you mean the kids aren't awake?" Like, "No, I saw someone behind you, like walking, pacing behind you." And I was like, "Dude, well, they're kids. Like, how was this person tall? Like, fucking talk to me." And she's like, I don't know how to describe it. I just saw someone walk by you twice." So I keep her on FaceTime, and I go into the kids' room to check on them, passed out, and I'm like showing her on FaceTime, and she's like covering her mouth. She's like, "Oh my god, this is fucking insane. Like, dude, I'm not crazy." I was like, "No, I know you're not. Do you believe me?" Because I would tell my stories to my friends all the time. They think I was absolutely insane. And so anyways, I sat back on the couch and I was like, please don't hang up. Like, no, I'm really scared. The parents at that point too were going to be home soon, like 20-30 minutes after I checked on the kids. So I was like, just stay on FaceTime with me, like just keep showing me your outfits or options, because she was bringing me clothes. I was meeting her and stuff. So like, we'll talk about something else. I'm really freaked out. And so we get back on topic, you know, clothes, plans for the night. I remember she was putting in the camera, like it was like tube top or something, crop top. She's like, oh, this would look really good on you. It has, and then she stops talking, and I see her eyes drift from like me to like the side of me, and I'm just like, please don't say what I think you're gonna say. I remember I was like, no, don't tell me. And she was like, don't turn around. I'm gonna screenshot this. Then she starts freaking out 10 times worse. She literally said, she's like, I'm trying to screenshot right now. My phone will not take a screenshot. And then she screamed, and I was like, what? And she's like, it's gone. She said that she saw a face, like, but just the features you could see of the face, dark eyes and like a mouth behind me. She said it looked like it was crouching down. Gross. Looking at me over the couch, like it was on its knees on the floor behind me or something, just like standing behind, its head was behind my head. I remember me and her talked about this so much, and she was just like, I didn't believe in anything paranormal, and now I like cannot believe I did not believe in stuff like that. So I really, after that, was feeling like extra scared, always thinking something was looking at me behind my shoulder, and I never wanted to like answer FaceTimes or take pictures because I was too afraid of what I might see going forward. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and answer all of the questions, like the most asked questions in every video of my haunted scary times for the family I used to babysit for. I know I've answered like a lot of these, but I know it's also hard to scroll through the comments and find any of everything, and I also don't want to keep typing the same thing. So first question I get all the time is, do I still talk to the family? Where are the girls now? I'm going to be 28 next month. I'm a Gemini. So I quit that job and I stopped working with the family when I went to college and I was 18. So there was a couple times where I'd be, you know, staying with my parents or something, and I'd be way closer to the family because they lived in like North Peoria, like far, and I moved to Central Phoenix for college. So I just wasn't available, and I also was working multiple jobs in college, and I was in college, so babysitting for the family just didn't make sense for me anymore. And also, the girls were growing up. They're becoming very close to not needing me anymore, as sad as that. Do y'all see that? As sad as it makes me. But since it's been 10 years, and I think now the oldest, Luna, she's probably in high school by now, so she's definitely older, and I don't have, like, the mom's phone number, because when I was watching them 10 years ago, obviously the kids didn't have phones, so I don't have their phone number. I lost the mom's contact because, again, 10 years ago, and I'm pretty sure I still do have the mom on Facebook, but I don't go on Facebook, like, ever. Maybe I'll check just to kind of see, like, what they've been up to. But I also don't want to bring up trauma, like, hey, I know they love and remember me, but I'm not just going to pop back into those girls' lives and be like, haven't talked to you in 10 years, like, you know, how's Pete, how's everything haunted? From someone that grew up in a haunted house and saw very disturbing things in my own home as a child, I would not want to be reminded of it if I had healed past it, and if I wasn't comfortable talking about it. Because the thing is with me, I'm very comfortable talking about my experiences. I've always had no problem talking about them. Not everyone is the same. So I would never want to invade Luna and Aura's privacy if they weren't ready or didn't want to talk about it. That's why I changed their names and kept them anonymous too. But yeah, I don't talk to them. So I'm sorry for that. I have no update. I don't know what they're doing now, but I'm sure they're doing amazing. Like I said, I think, God, they might both be in high school now. But they're great kids. They're very beautiful girls. They're very intelligent. They always have been. So I really think that they're doing amazing. I can almost like feel it in my heart, as cliche as that sounds. Second question I get a lot, because I have had some demonic activity at my home when I was a kid, a teenager. People always ask me, do you think it was these things from your own house following you? I don't, because before, like, early days of babysitting, and things started happening immediately, this imaginary friend was with Luna before I came into the story. And I know because my older sister had babysitted one time before I started and said that she was talking about it, and then she brought it up to the mom, and the mom was like, oh yeah, she's had that for, you know, basically since she could talk. She was talking to this thing. So I don't think those entities are parallel. I don't think they were following me, and You know what I mean? Like, they weren't coming from my house. What was in my home was really scary, but I feel like it stayed at my home. Another question I get so often is, did you tell the parents? How did the parents not know? I absolutely brought things up to the parents, and I've said in videos too how I have brought things up, and I think I'm pretty positive I posted the video where yes, I did, where mom was napping, so I'm like trying to remember, and I was like, hey, I think someone's in the house, like a real person, because everything felt so real. I brought it up to them quite a bit, especially in the beginning, and there are some people, y'all, and you just have to realize this, that are in complete denial of anything out of this world. There are a lot of people that don't believe in heaven or hell. There are a lot of people that don't believe in X, Y, and Z. Those are their beliefs, okay? And also, with the sixth sense, not everyone can literally see and hear things. So I think the mom for sure knew something was up, but I don't think she had any idea how serious it was, because maybe she couldn't see it, maybe she couldn't hear it, or like she just didn't believe in it. And you really can't fault parents or people who don't understand that, you know? And so that's why I always gave a lot of grace here, and I never got mad at the parents, like, you're being a bad parent. No, I would never do that just because they're not able to see and hear what me and the kids are seeing and hearing. Even though it was very scary, it was very dangerous, and it is really frustrating for kids to be so incredibly invalidated, but they had me to validate them, so they honestly were okay. And I don't think any hate towards those parents is necessary, because I really did have a lot of love for the parents too. They were very kind to me, they're very good to me. So any negativity about that, I just hate seeing in my comments, because I was close with this family, and that's just not the case here. They did know about the imaginary friend, the things I told them. They probably thought I was crazy, guys. Not everybody, like I said, can see, hear, and believe in the same thing as you. And trust me, it can be frustrating sometimes, but it's just the way life is. But if you guys have any other questions, I will try my best to answer them, so let me know in the comments. I think those are just the big three I get multiple times on every video I post. And like I said, I've answered them, but it's hard to go through the comments and find an answer. No one wants to do that. So this should be a good way to start, but let me know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, this story is based in Alabama. I am from South Florida, and so I grew up knowing about slavery, obviously, but I never grew up seeing these historical sites from this time period. I didn't see the graves of lost slaves. I never saw old plantation homes. I never saw any of that. And there's no really, deep history of slavery in my area, and so, now that I'm here, I can tell you, Alabama has such deep history when it comes to slavery. It's unbelievable. In every single city, there is some story to tell. And so I was in Huntsville, and that's North Alabama, about 20 minutes south of the Tennessee line. And I was at my boyfriend's grandparents' house for Christmas dinner. And we're both Catholic, so we ended up just getting into the conversation of ghosts, because we both believe in that. And she was like, actually, I have a ghost story. And I was all ears. I was full ready, waiting for her to tell me the story. And so she said that she lives in a cute little single family home, small little living room, small little kitchen, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And so she said a couple years ago, she added in a second bathroom to be attached to the master bedroom. And before she had this bathroom, there was a very large oak tree next to her house. And when she renovated the house and added in the bathroom, they took out the oak tree, and that's where the bathroom now is. And she said every single day for months, she saw a man, every single time she got out of the shower, when the mirror is all misty and foggy, she would see a man staring at her. And she never, felt scared or, felt like he was, a bad energy. She just acknowledged his existence and then just went about her day. But she would see him every single day. And so she's been telling people this story. Nobody's believing her. And so she's like, I'm just going to take a picture. I'm going to see if I can take a picture. She actually takes a picture. And I have this picture to show you guys. And when I say she showed me this photo for the first time, and my stomach dropped to my toes. I could not believe what I was seeing. It was so crystal clear. It's just, there are no words. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you this photo. So this is a photo of her holding her phone and me taking a photo of it. So I'm going to show you a picture of it zoomed in. So you can see his full outline up until like right below his collarbone. You can see that his hair has hair texture, almost like coily hair. You can see his ears, you can see his neck, you can see his collarbone. But if you really look, there's something around his neck. And there's something that's hanging down from the mirror. Tell me that's not a rope around his neck. There is a rope tied around his neck multiple times. And I'm going to show you a timestamp. So this is a timestamp of Huntsville, December 24th, 2022, 7:58 p.m. Turns out this oak tree that is next to her house that was there before the bathroom, turns out this was used as a hanging tree during slavery in the 1800s. And I believe this man that she saw every single day in her bathroom was a man that was hung from this oak tree, and he was an African American slave. And ever since she took this photo, she has never seen him again. Never. And I hope one day he's able to cross over and go to heaven, but he was stuck in this bathroom for a very long time. And he's been there for 200 plus years. So that's my ghost story. I fully believe it is okay if you don't, but I wanted to show this.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I had to hop on this trend because I could literally make a whole entire series about all the experiences I have had growing up, especially in the house that I grew up in. But I'll start with one really creepy story that literally gave me chills and still freaks me out to this day. When I was younger, my family had Korean exchange students that lived in our house, and one of the students shared a room with me, so we had a bunk bed, and she took the bottom and I took the top. And during this time, my dad had removed all of the doors to all the rooms in our basement because we were getting new carpet. And so I wanted a little bit more privacy. So for Christmas, my grandma gifted me some door beads, but they didn't come to the floor all the way. They were about a foot off of the floor. And my sister Callie would always come in and just steal my clothes, my makeup, whatever she wanted to use. And I was a pretty light sleeper, so she would slide under the door beads to come in the morning before school and to not wake me up. There was one particular night where my exchange student was visiting her uncle in another state for Thanksgiving, so I was alone in my room. It was nighttime, everybody was in bed, and it was dark, and I heard my door beads. So I looked over, and I see what looks like my sister, just like her silhouette, and she's got long, curly hair, and she was crawling on all fours with her hair, and her hair was like hanging in front of her face, and she was crawling on all fours, sliding under the door beads, and I could see the door beads like hitting against her back as she slid under. And once she got under, she like hurried to the end of my bed where the closet was at the foot of my bed. So I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I caught her in the act this time. I'm going to totally tell her that I knew she was stealing my clothes. So I snuck to the edge, to the end of the bunk bed. And I just tried to scare her. And when I looked over the end of my bed, there was nobody there. So I just started screaming, and then my sister ended up running down the hall, and she came in and turned on my light, and she's like, what? And I was just like, and I just freaked out and told her what had happened. But that was one time that was super, super creepy.
I've literally watched all the stitches to this video, but this story that I'm about to tell today, even though it happened years ago, still gives me chills, and I feel like it has a lot to do with why I quit my job. So I used to work in long-term care, for those of you that don't know, pretty much a nursing home. I was a certified nursing assistant out of high school. This was my first big girl job, okay? So when I first started, I didn't know a lot about the different types of shifts, but there's pretty much 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. I worked the 7 to 3, which was 7 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. As time went on, I slowly started to transition to 3 to 11 to work around my college courses. But every now and then I would pick up an 11 to 7 shift. It didn't take long before I started working there where people were telling me about this one particular resident that had an issue with people of a certain color coming into his room. I didn't have too much interaction with this resident because, like I said, I only worked 7 to 3, and you didn't have to do a lot for him. Just go in and check on him and make sure he was okay. Bring him his food tray. Every now and then he might ask you for help to go to the bathroom, but that was about it. I had heard that this resident could get kind of nasty sometimes. I also heard that he had dementia, so he was like seeing stuff. And I also remember going in his room a couple times and seeing all of the mirrors in his room covered up. This is going to come back later. So on my first 11 to 7, we'll call this nurse Patty. Patty pulled me aside and she was like, hey, this is the list of people, pretty much doing a report for when I first, clocked in, starting my shift. She told me who I had, who was total assist, which I had to do everything for, and who I could pretty much, let. So I noticed that this list had this certain patient's number on it, this certain resident's number on it. His room number was on there. But instead of it saying, just limited assistance or whatever, it was like total assist. So I asked, I'm like, I know I have him during the day and I just go in and check on him and make sure he's okay. If he rings the call light, I'll go in. But other than that, that's about it. When did he become a total assist? So she proceeds to tell me that the night before, he got so scared and so frantic and thought something was in his room that he jumped out of his bed and fell on the floor and did something to his hip. So at this point, currently, he's a total assist, meaning I have to go in, I have to check on him, I have to do everything for him. I said, cool, no problem. I start doing my rounds, I start checking on my people, passing out ice water, changing people, as I normally do. Literally, not even 15 minutes into my shift, his call light is on. I go in, I make sure everything's okay. As soon as I get in, I kid you not, this man is literally in the fetal position. I walk up to him and I ask him if everything's okay. Obviously, when I walk up to him, I'm very careful because, like I stated before, he did not like people of my color coming into his room. During the day, he would make a big deal out of this. Like, if he could get a nurse or a nursing assistant of a different color, he definitely would. He did not pay that any mind. He literally jumped straight into, they're in here, they're after me, please help me. I'm looking like, who is they? He's like, you don't see that little boy behind you? No, I can't say that I do, sir. So it took me literally 15 minutes, and by the grace of God, I was able to calm this man down. We're going to call him Mr. Johnson. After I calmed Mr. Johnson down, I left out of the room, and I went and did my rounds like usual. Literally, not even 10 minutes later, he's back on the call light. I said, okay, maybe he's got to go to the bathroom or something. I don't know. So I went in, checked. This time when I went in the room, I noticed that the room was extremely cold. Extremely cold. When I went in there earlier, it was not cold like that. Now, the nursing home, that nursing home in particular was a little colder on the graveyard shift. But when I tell you it was cold to the point where I could see my breath cold. At this point, not only is he in the fetal position, but he is also under the covers and he is also crying. So I walk up to him. I lift the cover up. I look under the cover. Again, he's sitting under there. We make immediate eye contact and he's like, help me, please help me. So I'm trying to calm him down because whatever he's seeing, I'm just not seeing it. So I'm like, Mr. Johnson, I'm going to need for you to cooperate with me. I'm going to need for you to tell me what's going on so I can better assist you and we can get through this shift together. At this point, I'm doing what I've been taught to do for somebody that's going through a dementia or Alzheimer's crisis, which is what I was told that he had. He calms down a little bit and he literally just starts talking. And when I tell you this got crazy quick, it got crazy quick. So he's telling me that when he was younger, about in his 20s or 30s, he was married to a young woman. We're going to call her Maggie. Him and Maggie had just bought a farm. It was literally just him and Maggie. And before you knew it, Maggie got pregnant. Back then, it literally wasn't uncommon to have people of color hired as help to help you on the farm, to help you raise kids, whatever the case may be. This was post-slavery, but people was very much still feeling entitled to doing whatever they wanted to do to people of color. So that's the time frame we in. He tells me that months go down the line,
Whatever. He goes and he wakes up early one morning. He sees that his wife is a little uncomfortable. She tells him, like, maybe the baby's coming or whatever. He doesn't think nothing of it. He goes out, get on his tractor, and he does his farmer work. He has a farmhand named Tommy. Tommy is a black man, okay? Around lunch, he's guessing, is when his wife went into labor while he was still out in the field. His wife called her mother-in-law, which was Mr. Johnson's mom, her sister-in-law, and his brothers came as well. Everybody's making sure that everything's going okay. The baby is finally born at some point. When the baby is born, I guess everybody in the room looked around at each other and realized that this baby was not in no way, shape, or form white. The brothers immediately take the baby and they go outside. His mom sits there with her and they go. They snatch this baby and they take the baby outside. Meanwhile, all this is going on. Him and Tommy are still out in the field. They took this baby out into a body of water, and I will not be saying what they did to this baby, but you can only imagine for the time period. Him and Tommy finally wrap up their work for the day and he heads back to the house. When he gets inside the house, he sees his wife sitting there with his mother. His wife is crying. His mom's just sitting there irritated and pissed off. He asks what's going on, and that's when she gives him the whole rundown that your wife was pretty much sleeping with your field hand, and this is the situation that you're in. So he asks, where's the baby? And the mom says, your brother's taking care of it. Don't worry about it. You need to figure out what you're going to do with her. Meanwhile, this is going on. His brothers have went and got Tommy out of the field. The things that they did to Tommy, again, I cannot describe it here on TikTok, but just imagine the torture and everything that he went through. They literally just left him there in that field. They left him there in the middle of the field. This man proceeds to tell me that when he finally figures out what happened and what his brothers did, they literally acted like nothing ever happened. And every night, Tommy and his son will come and visit him like clockwork. At this point, when I tell you the chills are running up my spine, literally every hair on my body is sticking up. I don't know what to say. I'm like, when they say frozen in fear, I was frozen in fear. Because it's like, as soon as he told me that story, I could pick up on what was in the room. Before, I couldn't pick up on what it was, but I could immediately feel something else in the room with us. After he told me the story, I finally got him to calm down and he went to sleep. He slept for literally a couple hours, and at this point, we're at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like clockwork, he hits that call light again. I go back in. I remember walking into the room and all of the sheets were taken off of the mirrors, which I thought was very strange because he wanted his mirrors covered up for a reason. I went over to Mr. Johnson and I touched him to make sure that he was okay, and this man was ice cold. He had died. As I went to leave the room to go contact a nurse, oh my God, I'm getting chills. I'm literally passing by this mirror, and as I'm headed out, on my left is a mirror. I turn and look in the mirror, and behind me, to the far wall of Mr. Johnson's room, I see a taller figure, and I see a shorter figure standing beside this taller figure that I would say is probably about the height of a 5-year-old child. I have never seen nothing like that in my life, ever. And I cannot explain the amount of fear that ran through my body, but I got out of that room so quick, I will tell you that. The crazy part is that when the nurse came in, we could not understand how these mirrors got uncovered. Even the one in the bathroom was uncovered. The one in his room was uncovered. Again, this is a man that just hurt his hip yesterday. There's no reason why he should have been out of bed taking these blankets off this mirror, and I know he wouldn't have done it anyway. Also, the fact that she felt like he had been dead for longer than I said he had. But again, I had just talked to Mr. Johnson. I had literally just talked to him. So I don't understand how a dead man talks, but maybe y'all can let me know. And when I tell you, baby, I only lasted 3 more days after that. I didn't sleep for days. I said, I'm not coming back. Y'all ain't gotta worry.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I live in Oregon, and a friend of mine was having her bachelorette party at a cabin in the woods at the base of a very well-known mountain. I was looking forward to going. A lot of people I care about were going to be on that trip, and I thought it sounded like a really fun weekend just to get away and be in nature. And the first thing that happened when I left my house, and I was just on the outskirts of town, I got such a strong feeling to turn around and grab some cleansing tools like sage, Palo Santo, whatever I had on hand. And it was so strong, I turned the car around, went home. My husband's like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. I just had to use the bathroom and I don't want to use the gas station." totally fed him a line because I didn't want him to get worried. It was a really pleasant drive up there, a couple of hours. You're at least in the forest for, I'd say, 45 to 50 minutes before you find this house. This house. As soon as I pull up into the garage, I immediately just have this overwhelmingly heavy feeling that I really can't explain. 2 other people had arrived. They were there taking care of a lot of the organizational details. And I walked in, and my 2 friends are standing in the kitchen here and here. These are pictures of the property. And I walk in, and automatically, just with my sensitivities, I am like, there is something up there that is funky, and I don't like it, and I don't want to go near it. I feel like I am being stared at, and it is highly dark, highly uncomfortable. And so my 2 friends in the kitchen are like, hey Meg, how's it going? We're glad you're here. I'm like, yeah, how are you guys doing? They're like, we're great. And I'm like, yeah. Other than the thing that's up those stairs that's been staring at you the whole time. And they were like, oh my God, we were waiting for you to get here because we just had such a weird feeling and we're freaked out and we wanted to know what you thought, because they know I've got like sensitivities or whatever. I walked up the stairs and I got to about this spot right here, and I stopped because I literally felt like an energetic wall, like, do not go any further. My friends said, that's really weird. That's literally as far as we went to before you got here. And we were, they were just checking out the house, and they went up into that weird little loft attic area, and they were like, nope, no further. This is the top of the stairs right here. And if you look way down in this loft area, there's a little door with a crawl space, and it was shut when we got there. As people started arriving, we were having fun joking, and one of the women went up there, and we were talking about how creepy it was, and she said, was the door open when you guys went up there? The crawl space door had been opened, and none of us had been up there. So that night, we're just kind of settling into the house, settling into the weekend, trying to figure out what's on the agenda, trying to have a good time. But if you're sensitive, you can just tell from these pictures, the place just had a creepy vibe. Those 2 same friends are sleeping in this room, and I am sleeping down here, downstairs, alone on a pull-out couch. First thing we notice is the incredible amount of dead insects all over the floor and even in the sheets. That night, one of my friends had her electronics go crazy at 3 a.m. I felt such a heavy layer of darkness. The first night I tried to go to sleep downstairs here on that pull-out couch, I felt like things were staring at me, circling me. I was this close to getting up and leaving in the middle of the night with a 2-hour drive home, rolling in at 5 a.m. with my husband, like, what are you doing? But I got this very clear message: you need to stay, and you need to help hold up some kind of energetic barrier. I had a dream when I eventually fell asleep that the entire property was surrounded by fire, and the fire couldn't penetrate this weird line that we were all trying to hold. So I was like, fine, okay, I guess I will stay in this freaky ass house. The next morning, we're all hanging out on the balcony and talking, having breakfast, having coffee, and people start to share their experiences. People were touched. People staying in the upstairs bedroom in the bunk beds had water dripped onto their faces, coming out of nowhere, and there were no leaks in the ceiling. It wasn't raining that weekend. Later that day, when most of the crew was playing yard games, like down here in the grass, one of the women was hanging out over here, and there was a deck of cards that literally got blown, and the cards were like flung into her face. I have no idea how that happened. At this point, I am getting so drained physically and feeling so sick, I need to go lie down. I'm alone in the house again, but I'm watching everybody from outside these windows where I'm at. Gosh, I can't point. And at this point, I'm just praying. Like, I'm here for a reason. These are people that I really care about and love, and I do not want to leave them here because I feel like I can be more helpful trying to hold off whatever this thing is. I did eventually run out to the corner store to test and make sure that the physical symptoms I was experiencing were really tied to the house and not just something going on with me. And as soon as I left the house, I felt so much better. But I had to come back. People were having personality changes while at the house. Like, they would start to withdraw, go take a shower, try and like snap out of it because they just felt something come over them. What I was picking up on primarily that kind of like lived in that upstairs loft area was something that was not nor had ever been human. This sounds really crazy because I've had run-ins with some really, really dark, start with a D word kind of entities. This wasn't even that. It almost felt like not from here, if you catch my drift. But it was, what I saw in my mind's eye was almost like a spidery looking thing. And it's interesting because another woman who was there told me that they saw that a spidery looking image of this big nasty thing like crawl from up in this main area down the stairs into the loft area where we were sleeping. And what's odd is that the safe places in the house would change depending on the time of day. It's like the rooms would just start to feel off. Another person said they were almost picking up on the presence of a man, like an older man. I wasn't picking up on a person, dead or alive, definitely a thing. The second night, one of my friends and I were just so uncomfortable about the idea of going to sleep that we just stayed up kind of deliriously talking to each other until, God, it must have been close to 4 a.m., just to not be asleep and unconscious in that environment. What's so weird and actually kind of miraculous if you think about it is that the bride was not affected. She was the only one out of all of us who had no idea what was going on because she was in her soon-to-be-wed splendor. And also, this particular person has an incredible amount of spiritual protection around her. So we were all really grateful for that, and we'd kind of like whisper about what happened to you last night and this happened to me in the bathroom earlier, and we were all just kind of keeping it out of the realm of awareness of the bride, fortunately. By the last morning, I'll never forget, one of my friends had set up a beautiful create-your-own crepe kind of buffet line, and we were all sitting down around at breakfast, trying to eat, and just feeling so uncomfortable, ready to get the heck out of there. Someone said, "So, you picking up on anything, Megan?" And it's interesting because at that moment, I felt just this overwhelming cloud, almost like darkness from every angle just starting to swoop in, and I said, I think it's time to go. The way everybody collectively pushed back from this table and popped up and got up and grabbed their stuff and started hauling ass out of there, it was like a scene in a movie. Other guests had weird experiences. I checked the book, paused to read. If anybody knows who this was, I would love to talk to you about your experience. This one's a little weird. I think some dude had a freaky experience and then leaned into the weirdness and hopefully just exaggerated because they didn't know what to make of it. We all stood outside of that house and we held hands in a circle and I kind of led everybody through a grounding and protective and clearing exercise because it was so vile. The husband-to-be was actually having his stag party down the road, and they came over because they heard whispers and rumors about what was happening to us that weekend, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're going to run in and we're going to take care of it." When they saw the look on our faces and they heard me say absolutely nobody's going into that house, they decided not to go in. I got in my car and was completely silent and white-knuckled my grip on the steering wheel until the tree line broke about an hour later and I was getting closer to home. I burst into tears and started sobbing. Because up until that point, I had never faced anything that dark or malevolent in my life. A few of us called each other after to process what had happened. It was wild.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
People that I know are definitely going to see this, and it's going to be so embarrassing because I am going to cry, and it's on the internet, and that's so cringe, and I know. But what I'm about to say is a completely true story. I'm going to change out some identifiable information because HIPAA, it involves a nursing story. So aside from like what happened, all the like details just, they're made up. Okay. So I was on orientation. I'm a new grad in the ICU. I am now off orientation, but this happened while I was on orientation. Anyway, so we have this guy, I'm going to call him Jason. He's a 40 to 60-year-old man. So like kind of young, has kids, married, whatever. Very, very sick. I had him for truly like the whole time that I was pretty much on orientation. And he, really sick, intubated, CRRT. I learned so much from him, which I will forever be grateful for. Truly learned so much. So thank you for that. Nearing the end of his stay, he all of a sudden turned this huge left corner, and I was like, oh my gosh, did I heal him? Woohoo! Got him extubated, got him off CRT. I got to hear his voice, got him sitting up on the edge of the bed. Like, it was, I think, one of the best days of my whole life. So that was earlier in the week, and had a couple days off. I was feeling so good. And I come back to work, and it was a night shift. And, you know, I'm like, I don't know, excited to see what new patient I was going to get, what else I was going to learn. And they say, hey, Bailey, and my preceptor, y'all got to get out on the floor. You have Jason back. And I was like, what? Because, again, I'm on orientation. It's like, I should be getting, like, I was like, he's fixed. Like, what are we, I mean, like, fixed for the ICU. But I was like, what do we mean? Like, why am I getting him back? And they're like, oh, we're actually coding him. What? So we run down there, and sure enough, we're coding him. He's back on CRT, back to being intubated, and I am just devastated. Oh my God, was I devastated. So we walk in, and we just start working. It wasn't even, I guess it was like right at 7 p.m. We didn't get report, because again, I'd had this patient for weeks, and so I knew, I was like, but what happened? And it turns out it happened. It doesn't matter. Anyway, some other things happen. And we go in at 7 p.m. I don't walk out of that room until 3 a.m. Like 3 a.m. It was crazy. Blood, sweat, and tears. And 3 a.m. is whenever we came out. We're just like, there is nothing more. There is nothing more that we can do. And I was broken. Okay, so come out. 7:32 a.m. and Jason passes, and it was devastating. And and the ICU can just be like tough, and losing anybody is tough. This one has stick with me and will stick with me forever. And I promise I'm getting to the ghost story. I promise. Okay, so he passes, and I just want to stay to do postmortem care, because for me that's such like it gives me closure. I can get them all cleaned up and make sure that they're like as comfortable as possible. Like, it's just the last little bit that like I can do, and it helps me. Okay, but I can't, because it was so sudden, and so we were giving family time to like come and blah blah blah. Okay, and I was coming back that night, so I couldn't just like stay. Like, I have to come back. I have to go to bed. I have to like be ready to go for the next day, which is so challenging. Okay, so that happens, and I am so not okay. I am so not okay, but I have to be okay because it's the ICU and I'm new and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so months goes by from that moment, and I mean, from that time on, I mean, it was weekly. It was turning into like an every other day situation, whether I was working or not. I was having panic attacks. I was having nightmares. I was physically so unwell. One particular night, I'm coming in for my shift. I'm off orientation. I'm on my own. I've been practicing on my own for a couple months at this point, and I just feel terrible. I'm still in panic attacks. Before this particular shift, I'm having a panic attack in the car in the parking lot of the hospital. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, I'm not strong enough. I can't do this. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I was kidding myself. Major imposter syndrome, but panic attack nonetheless. Shaking, crying, hysterical. And I thought, okay, just don't clock in and go quit. Like, if you really can't handle it, go quit. Walk up to the floor. I'm like, no, I've breathed, I've composed myself. Clock in. So I'm there. I'm getting my patients. Like, we're having a shift. And I go on and I get my patient assignment. Great assignment. We're chilling. This one patient that I got, I don't think we need a name for him. Anywho, he was there for alcohol withdrawal. Beginning stages, but beginning to hallucinate if you haven't worked with, or if you're unfamiliar with that. So they start to hallucinate. He was seeing people in the room. He was seeing things crawling on the wall, but like nothing scary, because sometimes they can be really scary, and I feel really bad for that. But his were fine. And he was also very trusting of me. Like, he was like, hey, I've been through this before. I know I hallucinate. It helps me if you can help reorient me. Anytime you walk in the room, just, you know, I trust you. I know who you are. I was like, sweet. So we're going through the night. Everything's groovy. I'm able to get him off of hallucinations. He'll be like, this is there. And I'm like, and he's like, do you see that? And I'm like, no, like, I don't see that. Or, hey, I have a concern about this. And I would go check. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not seeing that. But do you feel safe? Are you okay? He's like, yep, I'm good. I trust you. Again, we're chilling. Several hours into the shift, all of a sudden I'm looking at the monitor, super tacky. He turns on his light, like from his bed or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, that's so strange. So I fly in the room. I'm like, maybe, you know, hallucinations getting to him. I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's agitated. Oh my God. He was so upset with me. And he was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, whoa. I was like, hey, like, what's up? I was like, because, you know, sometimes that happens and no big deal. We roll with it. And so I'm trying to help reorient him. And all of a sudden he goes, Jason's in the corner. Sir? Jason? I'm like, okay. Well, because I didn't think that up at first, but I go, who's Jason? And he goes, that guy that died in here. And goes on. He's like, this is where his spouse was. This is what you did. This is what you guys talked about. This is music that you played for him. This is what he liked to do. And he's in the corner and he wants to talk to you. And I'm so mad that you're not talking to him. So I hightail it out of that room. I'm like, oh my God, he's right. And he knew his name. And I'm like, what room am I in? I was in his room. In his room. So I run out of the room. I'm freaking out. And I'm like, no one's going to believe me. Everybody's going to think I'm crazy, that I've like lost my mind. So I run up to tell my charge. I'm sobbing. She starts kind of getting emotional. And she's been a nurse for 25 years. So she was like, whoa, I've never heard anything like this. Anyway, I go back in the room. And I was like, okay, what does Jason want to tell me? Because I can't see him. And he calmly tells me, again, I just had a panic attack. And the man in the bed that's hallucinating says, Jason's in the room. He's been in here. And he's wanted to talk to you all night. And he wanted to say that he has moved on. And that you need to, too. And I hadn't moved on. I hadn't. Obviously. And I just started crying. And I just said, okay, and thank you. And he said, no, thank you. And I was like, oh, what did I do? And he said, no, that's what Jason wanted me to tell you. He wanted me to tell you thank you. And oh my God. Since then, I haven't had any panic attacks. I felt so much more confident in the ICU and in my skill. And I carry him with me everywhere. I think about him all the time. And his family, and just how beautiful of a person he was. But I truly learned so much from him. He was an amazing person that I just learned so much about how to be a nurse and how to care for people in really shitty situations. So, cheers to Jason. But yeah, that's my ghost story. My past patient haunting another patient to tell me that I needed to get my stuff together and move on. So anyway, that's my story. Thanks for listening.